Welcome to the Financial Power Play, the podcast where hockey meets real life money talk. I'm Brett from Uptown Wealth Management, here to help hockey families and professionals create a financial game plan that works on and off the ice. From the rink to retirement, this is your go-to for real stories, smart strategies, and trusted advice. Let's drop the puck and dive in. Hi, welcome to the Financial Power Play. I'm Brett Cranston, and here with me today is a great guest, former professional hockey player, and now performance coach, Rob Pallante. Rob, welcome to the episode.
Hey, Brett. Thanks for having me.
That's great. So I want to kind of start off with like your hockey journey. I know we talked before about it. I just wanted to maybe start with like how you got into hockey and how you found the love for it and your journey through it.
Well, like a lot of Canadian kids, it was just part of what we did growing up, and I was very fortunate that my father was also a hockey player, played with the historic St. Mike's organization, played junior A, got a scholarship, went to Michigan Tech, knew a lot of pro hockey players at the time, so I was constantly around the game. So both my younger brother and I were introduced to the game at a young age. My career, sort of took off. Played AAA through most of it. Played on a really great AAA midget team back in, I guess that would have been 86. Was a 52nd pick overall to the Sudbury Wolves. Back then, unlike the options that the kids have today, where they can play junior and go to the NCAA, we had to pick one back then. So after being drafted by Sudbury, my father and I talked about the recent success of the Wolves and where my development would be best met. And we agreed that I would finish high school locally, play a year of junior B back then provincially, and then if I was still good enough and I didn't get an offer, I'd go to the OHL. But as it turned out, I had some options, and I chose to go to Michigan Tech, the same school my dad went to. And up until that point, I was on a pretty good trajectory towards my goal, which was to play in the NHL. And then this is where I ran into my first little bit of adversity. 3 days on campus, I was a true freshman, just turned 18 years old, and bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, figured I had the world by the colognes. Went to a frat party with another player with a bunch of the guys on the team. We hadn't even started training camp yet, and I found myself in a situation where Randy McKay, who was a senior, he had actually gone on, played in the NHL. I think he won a Stanley Cup. Him and I got in a beef with some guys at this frat, and we fought 4 or 5 of them in the parking lot. I broke my hand, and that was a real setback in my career. The first bit of true adversity, I figured that no problem, I'd roll through that. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way, and the lesson looking back was, sort of led me to what I'm doing now, and that's working in the mental performance space. I started to spiral because, as it happened, I only wound up playing one game. I got redshirted my first year. I trained hard in the summertime, and I came back, and I just expected that, being a Canadian kid on a full ride, that I was going to be in the lineup. Not so. Still had to earn that. And, there's a whole other class of freshmen coming in that you're competing against. We had, I think we had 10 or 12 D on the team, and only six to seven guys would dress for games. So I found myself on the outs again in my second year. Only played 12 games. My third year, played every game. And leading up to Christmas time, we were playing at the GLIs, and then I was pulled out of the lineup again. Had a disagreement with the coach. Wound up coming back home at Christmas time. Still old enough to play junior, and then I finished my college career. I finished 2 years at Acadia. I was offered I was offered to go to 5 NHL camps because I'd missed my draft year because of injury and lack of playing. Chose to go to the Minnesota North Stars in '92, had a really good camp. Being an unsigned, undrafted player, it was very difficult to make the lineup. I played in a few exhibition games, did very well, but subsequently wound up getting sent down to the minors and into a role of, being a bit of a fighter and a tough guy. Although I didn't do a whole lot of that playing in college, but I was just a bigger player. And fast forward, 3 or 4 years in the minor leagues, and I had just fallen out of love with the game, and moved into the next phase of my career, which was in the corporate world. I spent 20 years in corporate, and I got into what I'm doing now after experiencing a near-death motorcycle accident in 2015, going through a divorce, 2 young kids on my Harley, coming to pick up my daughter at the house for her little U9 soccer tournament at the end of the season. I figured I'd ride over 2 blocks from the house, and thank God I didn't get to her. I got hit head on by a woman on her phone not paying attention, and wind up spending the next 40 days on my back, 8 surgeries, given my last rites, and so I had a lot of time to think about my life previous and what I wanted it to be going forward, and that's really where the idea of giving back came from, and learning more about the connection between the mind and the body.
Yeah, that's a great story, and lots of adversity in your career there, and I think it's great for other people to hear that there's a lot of different paths that you could take going forward, and you never know what's going to happen in life either going forward. So after you said like you've kind of fell out of love of the sport, I guess. I don't know how that happened, or I know you're trying so hard to play at the next level, and sometimes it gets to you, especially you said like mental wise. And then so how was that transition like out of hockey into the corporate world?
It was difficult. You spend so much time trying to become a hockey player that your identity becomes the hockey player. And one of the most important things for young players today is, and one of the things that I work on with the athletes I work on is separating the player from the person. And I think, when you leave the game, everything is so structured, as a pro. What time you need to be at the rink, what time you eat, what time the bus leaves, what time, the games are at, your pregame. Everything is structured for you. You really don't have to think, but you do have a lot of spare time on your hands. And being able to use that time constructively is where a lot of guys seem to develop or can develop bad habits. And so for me, falling out of love with the game was, I felt that the game owed me something. And what I realized later on in life is that the game owes you nothing. And it's are you willing to use the game and not let the game use you? And that's by separating the player from the person, detaching from the identity of being a hockey player. And that's where a lot of guys, when their career is over, they spiral because they lose a sense of who they are. And so it's so important to have a set of core values that you can use to make decisions and life decisions going forward. And for me, I just, I didn't like the role I was in. I felt the game owed me something. It wasn't until later on when I got involved in the mental performance coaching that I was able to look back and say, this had nothing to do with anybody else other than decisions that I made. I still loved the game, and at the time I didn't realize that, but I had allowed myself to become this version of me that I wasn't happy with, and I probably couldn't have articulated that at the time. And I'm only able to look back. We know hindsight's 20/20. We can look back at that and reevaluate ourselves at that moment in time. And I can say I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with who I was, the role I was in, but I also wasn't giving it a fair shot. My off-ice habits weren't conducive to being a player at the next level. I expected, things to happen just because I was talented. And what I learned is talent will only take you so far, and the mental game and being able to ride through adversity and not be affected by some of the challenges that are going to be thrown at you is probably a better indicator of how far you're going to go in your sport than talent will be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so after the corporate world, I guess you're still working in the corporate world, and then you started your mental performance business. So tell me more about that mental performance business, who you work with, how you got started doing that, and
Yeah, so after my accident, it was 2 years of rehab to rebuild my body. I mean, I had 8 surgeries, and I was given my last rites in the hospital. I was in a bad place physically, but it turned out to be a blessing because it allowed me to lay there for 40 days and analyze who I was, and then the person that I wanted to be. And I started to read a book called Think and Grow Rich, and really it had nothing to do with money, but it's all about your perception. And it started to form a connection between the mind and the body for me. And initially, I was told I was going to be in the hospital for 120 days, but I walked out in 40. And I really truly believe that a lot of it had to do with the shift that I had made mentally while I was in the hospital, the obligation and the purpose and the why that I found in 2 young children and an ex-wife who were relying on me. And being in the hospital for 120 days, I wasn't serving the purpose that really I was meant to be doing. And so that was the impetus for me to move forward. The coaching was born out of that in the 2 years of rehab that it took me after, when I started to truly understand that connection that an athlete can make between the mind and the body. And so it was reaching back out into the sports community and you know waking up every day with the idea that I'm going to be a servant leader and trying to help somebody navigate their way through the minefield that I ran through and stepped on a lot of mines. And using a combination of my athletic experience, my hockey experience, and my corporate experience, and pulling that together with this newfound passion for the mental side of the game and how truly important it is for young athletes to start to grasp and manage that skill just like they would learning how to skate, shoot, and pass. And so that started in 2019. COVID hit. It kind of put a slowdown in the process of expediting my coaching. But I truly believe now everything happens for a reason. It kind of pushed me back into the corporate world a little bit, because I still have a family that I have to feed and need money. And starting a business fresh like that without the past experience and social proof was a bit of a challenge. But now I find myself 5 years later, I've got a player in the NFL. I just spent the weekend in Ottawa, watching three of the girls, the ladies that I work with, who play in the PWHL. I've got some great connections. I've got players in the OHL, the USHL, the NAL, and a number of minor hockey players and a number of teams that I work with. And so I find it very, very rewarding to be able to spend my time working with those young minds now and helping shape them for their future.
yeah, that's awesome. So are you, with the mental performance coach, are you trying to focus more on guys at the next level where they're the OHL or up, or do you want to build your business across, I guess, minor hockey as well?
I think I've done a pretty good job, learning through the minor hockey leagues, and I'll continue to offer my services there because I think the sooner that young players and let's call coaches and parents as well, because there's a big learning curve for them, and not everybody, not all the parents and not all the coaches have had the experiences that I've had. And I think if you're able to embrace the mental game early and start to develop those skills, As I mentioned, just like you do your skating, shooting, and passing, let's talk about it as a four-legged stool. You got your technical, tactical, your physical, and your mental. And up until probably your junior college or pro, you're developing is the technical, tactical, and the physical, and you're not developing the mental. And if you're not developing that, now your four-legged stool is going to be unbalanced. And when you are presented with adversity or obstacles, you're not going to know how to deal with them. And those setbacks could really affect, you advancing to the next level. Just because you score 40, 50 goals in minor hockey doesn't mean you're going to step into the OHL or the NCAA and be a first or second line contributor. So making those transitions from minor hockey to junior to college to pro, those are big steps. And understanding how the mental game can help you through those transitions to stay grounded, stay focused, and understand that you need to work hard and stay humble through those transitions is so important. And not losing sight of your dream, but being able to understand that there's a commitment you need to make on a daily basis to becoming 1% better than you were yesterday. And sometimes not being able to ask the question how and when, but just commit to the process versus the outcome is so important for young athletes to understand as they go on their journey now. It's a roundabout way of answering the question. Yes, I want to focus on the youth. I would like to play. I think I'm at a point now where I'm able to contribute and help players at the highest level as well. I know that a lot of the challenges they have at the pro level is it is no different than the levels below them. And they do have the resources. The challenge is they're not always willing to talk to the resources that are, call it, employed by the team, because those resources have to report back to the team. And there might be this ego issue. There might be this concern that, if I'm talking to somebody who might be a sports psychologist or somebody who's, involved with the team, that might be perceived as a weakness. And so I look at my services as being somebody outside of the organization that somebody at the pro level can approach, can talk to, so that can create a relationship that has been there, that understands what it's like and what they're going through, and so has that ability to relate, but also offer them the tools to build a foundation that they can use in their current situation, but most importantly, for when the day they decide they don't want to play or they can't play anymore, and how they transition into life. And I think that set of tools is actually more important.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's good that you're helping them move on from hockey after they're done playing professional or wherever they stop playing, because I think like a lot of kids and a lot of hockey players, their whole identity is hockey. And similar to yours, similar to mine too. My whole identity when I was playing was hockey. I mean, I didn't play at the high level like you did, but when I finished playing, I was also kind of lost a little bit of where I was going to do for the rest of my life and where I was going to go, because hockey, that's all I did was play hockey. So it's good that
When I
there's.
work with a team, it's funny. I'll walk in. One of the first things I'll do is introduce myself and talk to the room, and I'll point at kids and I'll say, "Tell me who you are," right? And they'll say, "Well, I'm Johnny. I'm a left winger." Right? Or my name's Sam and I play defense, or I'm Joey, I'm a goalie. Well, that's not who they are. It's what they do, and they don't understand that at that age. We know the prefrontal cortex in young men doesn't develop until they're between 21 and 25 years old, and so they don't have the ability unless somebody is actually talking to them that way. Coaches are so focused on just winning, and putting out players that are going to put up points. And kids are worried about, outcomes versus the process. And it's backwards. I really think that until, we'll call it Hockey Canada, from the top down, starts to implement a process, not just for the players, but for coaches to go through some sort of EQ training so that they can better relate to the players and understand the support that they need and the training that they need to develop the mind as well as the body, we're going to continue to see these trends of talented players falling by the wayside because they get lost in the shuffle when they're transitioning to the next level, and they don't know how to manage it, and neither do the parents or the coaches, right? And there's always somebody behind you pushing you, so you become a commodity, and that's sort of what happened to me.
Yeah, I find that now with where I am with my kid at the U16 level, I'm starting to see, which you didn't realize until now, that the mind is a big part of playing, because a lot of them are in that mindset that they're seeing the scouts in the stands and they start getting nervous or tense up, and you see them in practicing, then they look amazing, and then they get into a game and they look like they're holding their sticks too tight. So but if you learn how to do the mental stuff, I guess earlier than this year, than their U16 year, they might be more prepared to.
It's unfortunate. A lot of the teams that call me in the GTHL are calling me in at the U15, U16 year. And that's a hard transition for a 16, 15, 16-year-old kid to make in one season, right? Some of them catch it, and kudos to the coaches and the teams that are bringing me in. But really, it's programs that should be implemented at a rudimentary level. Once a kid, and I don't believe you need to specialize in a sport until you're like 14 or 15 either, right? So these kids that are committed to playing hockey, or these parents that think that their kids got to play hockey year round at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, I think is wrong. I think put the equipment away, go play another sport in the summer, learn to become an athlete. They'll become more rounded as a person as well. But there's so much pressure in the Toronto area to compete with the Joneses, and if I'm not on this spring team, then the coach won't pick me, and I'm not going to play on his team next year. It's become a cesspool, truly. And I've coached in the GTHL for a number of years, so I can say that. And taking a step back and then offering my services back in to the coaches that see that I can add incremental value to not just the on ice, but the off ice development of my player, the mental development of my player. Because let's face it, only 0.025% of the kids that play this game worldwide are actually going to get paid to play, and that's a very, very low percentage. Right? So if you're not creating better people, not just better hockey players, are you truly coaching?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and now that I've kind of gone through it 7 years with my kid, I'm looking back and seeing that, you get caught up in all that. Oh, you got to be here, you got to play here. I mean, my kid played other sports too. He played lacrosse but and roller hockey and some other stuff. But you still, now I look back and I'm like, why was I doing all that stuff? Like, I should have just been letting him be a kid, right? So, and now I tell all my friends who have younger kids, just let them play and enjoy the ride. And so it's so different, but it's hard when you're in it.
It is, and if I could share any advice with parents, the best thing that a parent can do is support their kids, get them to the rink on time, make sure that the kid is invested in the sport more than you are, and after the game. And I wrote a paper on the car ride home. Instead of talking about the things that they didn't do well after a game, tell them that you love them and that you love watching them play. Most kids know when they didn't play a good game, and it's so important that they feel that they have a safe space in that car ride home. And I say that based on an experience I had when I first started in this space, and I was working with an 04 U16 team, and I had all these kids, and it was COVID at the time, so we were all on a Zoom call. And I asked the question, thinking I was going to get a different answer that was hockey related. I said, "What's your biggest fear?" And surprising to me was more than half the kids said it was the car ride home after they played a shitty game with their dad or their mom. And what we looked was, I started to do some research. There was a decline in registration at that age at around 13, 14 years old. And one of the top reasons where kids stopped playing competitive sports was because of the parents and the pressure that was being put on them on that car ride home. They're in a space where they're trapped. They can't get out. And you've got, a parent who is continually talking to them about things they could have done. And maybe that parent has never played the game, right? Which makes it even more difficult. And so you've got this this emotional state that's heightened. The kid maybe just played a terrible game. Maybe the team got beat up and they lost. And now you're going to drill, your kid on the way home about mistakes that he made when he probably already heard it from the coach and he already knows it himself. So that would be a little bit of advice that I would give to parents is back off. The kids know. Coaches are going to coach. They're going to correct the mistakes, give them a safe place, and allow them to make the first comment about the play and the way that they played before you jump down their throats in the car.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I've pulled back also. Same thing. I let him talk in the car. He gets mad. He yells and screams, but I don't. And I just let him talk, which I think a lot of parents should do. Just let their kids vent in the car on the way home because they feel it's a safe space as long as you don't yell back at them. So I think that's some great advice there. Is just let them play. And this is from my side. Is that from the financial side? Because I'm a financial guy, so I see maybe sometimes the financial investment gets the parents going a little bit as well because they've put so much money into this and they just want their kids to play well. They want to get them to the next level and they want them to start making some money so that they can see some payback from all the investment they put in. Just not just the money to pay, but also the driving and all the time that you put into it as well.
But Brett, and that's a great point that you bring up. And as a parent, you have this commitment. And a lot of it is time and financial, right? Look I reposted a post on my story on my Instagram about the investment that Connor McDavid's parents made, and it walks through the succession to him being a pro. It was like $10,000 a year at 6 to 8 years old, all the way up to junior was $100,000. It turns out by the time he turns pro and signs his first NHL contract, the investment was somewhere around $500,000. So your job as a parent is to fund one player that has no guarantees. And if you're going to pressure the kid to perform based on the investment you make, I'd say don't invest, because you're doing this for them, not for you.
Yeah.
And so take a step back, as you said, from a financial perspective. You're either all in on this and you're going to support them no matter what the decision and the outcome, knowing that the odds of them making it are 0.025% of the 2.5 million kids that are registered for minor hockey in North America, or and just tell them that you're there to support them. And so you can't use your time or the money you've invested as a carrot to dangle in front of them, because that's not why they're playing.
Yeah,
They're playing
exactly.
hopefully because they love the game, and you should be taking them there and showing up and supporting them because you love your kid.
Yeah, that's what I agree with you. I see the same thing. I'm just trying to get my kid to his goals. So whatever he wants to do, I'm just going to help support it however I can and get him the tools that he needs to get him to that next level if that's what he wants to do in hockey. So I think a lot of parents should think about that too. Just try to support their kids and not that they want to do, and just follow their lead.
The last thing a kid wants to hear is, I've invested my time and my money, because they're going to get to an age now and they've got access to, phones and media and all this stuff. They're basically going to just tell mom and dad, go F yourself. I didn't ask you to do this. You wanted to do it. I had a passion, and, now maybe I'm running into adversity. The best thing you can do as a parent, hug your kid, tell them you love them, tell them you love watching them play, and allow them to go through this. Money and your investment and your time isn't going to save your kid. No one is going to come and save him. He's got to figure that out. And this is where, somebody like myself can work through any adversity or the challenges that a kid's had. And look I got a 21 and 19-year-old. My son is the oldest, and hockey just didn't pan out for him. A lot of it, and I can say this honestly now, was probably because of me. And this was prior to my accident and prior to me coming out and uncovering the challenges that from the mental side of the game, because I was probably that parent that put the pressure of being a former pro, playing at all the levels, and now I got my kid in the car and I'm watching him play and I'm saying, why didn't you do this? How come the effort wasn't there? And you know what? My poor son is probably just shriveling and shrinking in the back seat because he's like, I'm never going to be able to live up to my father's image. And that was on me. And I own that now. And I can't go back and change it. But I can share that advice with a parent who might be in a similar situation,
Yeah, that's great. So on that note, just to end it, you said you wrote a book. Where can we find that book that you wrote?
Well, let's just define. It's not a book. It's a journal. And
Okay.
what I did was I had for the last 3 or 4 years when I train, I bring a notebook or I started using my phone. And the things that I listen to are things that podcasts and motivational things, and I'm constantly grabbing little snippets. And finally, I had probably about 650 quotes. I'm like, I got to do something with these. So I got together with with somebody that helped me put it into a journal format. So I've taken a format from my mental performance coaching, which I have all my athletes. I don't require, but I request that they keep a journal, a performance journal. They ask themselves 3 questions: What did I do well? What can I do better? How can I do it? So I've got a little format on every page, and at the top of every page is one of the quotes that I've captured, and you can find it on Amazon. It's actually I've got a copy of it right here. I can show it to you. 365
Awesome.
days, undated, so you can start on any time. Mental performance, daily quotes and prompts and motivational quotes, and you can search for that on Amazon.
Awesome. And if someone wanted to work with you, where would they be able to find you?
Couple of places. My company is Mindset Body Bank. You can find me on Instagram, also on Facebook, and also on LinkedIn under my name, Rob Pallante.
Perfect. That's great. All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on today. And I think this is really informative for a lot of hockey parents and also hockey players as well.
Appreciate it, Brett. Thanks for your time and thanks for inviting me on.
Thanks for tuning in to the Financial Power Play. If this episode sparked something for you, be sure to subscribe, share it with your hockey crew, and leave a review. Want to talk about building your own financial playbook? Visit uptownwealthmanagement.com to book a free consultation. Until next time, stay focused, stay flexible, and keep playing your game.